I really wanted to really quickly do an overview of this whole man versus woman debate, specifically black males versus black females. I recently went over everything with a friend on IG, so I'm just going to say it here. When it comes to the man, especially the black male, let's use that as an example, black male and black female relationship. In order to dig into this deeper, you have to go back into time. This, battle between the sexes started long ago, not just now, years ago. You have, if you think back in time, before, let's say, okay, if we go back in time, you have the family, right? You have the family setting where mother, father is in the household, dad works, mom stays home, is a housewife, takes care of the kids, teaches the children, and is responsible for all of that. It's kind of like the Stepford Wives era. However, what did we have? War. Okay, so you have economic decline, you have a war, you have wars going on. The males are taken out of the household because they're enlisted in the service and they have to go fight wars. So they leave. Mom is home struggling. How are they going to maintain the kids? A lot of women went to work at factories. Some of them, especially black women, worked as housekeepers, and they basically had to find ways of earning income and taking care of the kids. Now, not only did black men go off to war, some of them came back injured or disabled. Some of them passed away. A lot of things happened. Some of them even found love elsewhere in other countries. That's another thing. And so, and then a lot of them came back with this new realization about how life really was. How even though they went to fight these wars, they still weren't respected or honored. They still dealt with racism. They still dealt with all of this stuff. And, we had the revolutionary times, fighting for civil rights and the Black Panther Party. You had a lot of educational, I don't know how to say it, like a lot of realizations and a lot of knowledge was brewing in that aspect. We were learning things, we were focusing, we were paying attention to how we can rise and build as a collective unit, as a community, because we realized that there were a lot of things that happened to start to try and divide us, because certain people were threatened by our unity. And so because of that, we moved forward. We also had the welfare program, right? And that stated that if you were to take advantage of that program, you could not have a male in the household. You couldn't. There were a lot of people hiding men in the closet, and you just couldn't have a man over. And they would visit you, they would come, they would look your place up and down. They're looking at everything to see what you have, every little thing. And it was a very invasive process, just to ensure that you did not have anyone else helping you or there with you in the household if you were going to get this governmental assistance. So now families are growing up, there's no male figures in the household. And this is all for women to still struggle at jobs that weren't even paying them fairly or even nearly as much as their male counterparts. So that is even more frustration on the Black female, because I'm not even getting paid what I'm worth, and I'm doing more work than this guy, and I still have mouths to feed, and I can't even have any help. So it was very frustrating. Then if we add on the cocaine dilemma, how it was infused in our neighborhoods, and more Black men were jailed and imprisoned, taken away from their families again. It just spewed this intense amount of strife and struggle. We couple all of that, we put all that together, right? Of course, the Black woman is going to be frustrated and at their wits' end. So then but then it's still like this idea that the man is superior, and you're still told that he's superior and he knows more than you, he does more than you, even though your work environment does not reflect that, your community does not reflect that. Everywhere you turn, you have a hand in strategically uplifting and bringing men up. You're raising men who go on to be great, but yet you're told, stay down here and let him rise above you. And it can be a lot. And so you have a certain, some women branched off and was like, screw that, I'm not doing that. I know exactly my worth. I deserve better pay because I'm more qualified. They educated themselves, and they just knew their value. And they were single parents, a lot of them, so they did a lot of stuff on their own. They had to do everything by themselves. They didn't have any help. So now you're expecting me now. So here I am, a modern woman who's a boss, right? I am a CEO or an executive, and I'm sitting down to date you, and we're sitting at a table on a date. Now, I am a boss, I am a CEO in my entire life. My daily routine calls for it. You want to tell me now that I must dilute who I am, bring it lower to make you feel superior because you're the man and you're the key provider, and you need me to be submissive. And I find that so strange, because I feel if you want someone who is submissive and subservient, you should just date that person, right? Like, why aren't guys who want these kind of women, why aren't you dating gold diggers? What is wrong with dating a gold digger? You proclaim that you are the provider. You want to be respected as such. What is the problem with you dating a gold digger? They agree that you should be the provider. So what is the problem? Why are you not dating someone who agrees with you in that aspect. What you shouldn't do though is date the boss and then ask her to be beneath you or submit to you. Granted, a lot of us women who consider ourselves either independent or forward thinking, sure, we would love to come home and have a moment where we can just kick back our feet and relax. But we don't want someone forcing us into that position. We don't want someone to tell us when to turn it on and off. I think that's where the disconnect lies. And I say this because there's this battle between the sexes, especially in the Black community, where you have this heavy, inundated patriarchy that is, and then you have, and it's kind of like they're coming from a place of trying to re-establish dominance, right? And put us all in our place. And then you have the feminine, the matriarchy, who is saying, no, I'd rather be single and alone. Or I'd rather go for the other team, honestly. So the males are feeling like they, and again, it all ties in because both parties don't feel heard. The men want to be respected because they are just now realizing how messed up society has conditioned them to not have any feelings at all, not express any emotions, just be this money maker, this money machine, take care of your family and provide. That is your value. You are only as valuable as the job that you have, period. Outside of that job, you're no one. You are just money to your family. And it has weighed taken a toll on them mentally. So they're unlearning a lot. And they're being more open and upfront with their feelings. And that is a beautiful thing. So they're wanting to be acknowledged as well. And they're wanting to be respected. And plus they have to deal with a lot publicly with the police and how they're perceived as strong Black men, how they're perceived as threats in society. So it's difficult for them, absolutely. And I will be honest, there are some women, a group of women who are very ungrateful and unappreciative. I can admit to that. There's a lot of women out there who will bring them down so low because they are suffering with their own issues. Maybe they didn't have a consistent dad. Maybe they were cheated on, which usually they were probably cheated on, and as a result they're very bitter towards the men, and they just can't shake that. They haven't dealt with that, and as a result you lash out and you generalize and stereotype all Black men as horrible or not worth a damn, when that's just not the case. There are a lot of examples out there of Black men who are doing the damn thing. They're out here taking care of their family, and they're being respectful of women, and they're being team players. They're doing what needs to be done. There are great women out there too. So it's both sexes. We're gonna have those exceptions. We're gonna have people who give us a good name, some who don't give us a good name. But we're so focused on pushing out and highlighting the negative generalizations that we don't stop to give credit for the positive side of things. And that's why we can't hear each other. So I need us to both recognize what we've been through historically, as a collective unit and as individual sexes. And start there. Start at this baseline of just love and appreciation. Don't worry about the people who are not doing their part. Leave them to themselves. We're just focused on those who are doing what they're supposed to do and trying their best to uplift the community and make things better. Again, if you are into the patriarchal belief, the extreme part of it, there's nothing wrong with that. There are people who follow that. Find them. Everybody find your tribe. Find who aligns with you. But what you shouldn't do is pursue someone to then tell them to change who they are, or guilt them into dimming their light or suiting your needs, your selfish needs. I think we all should just date who we're supposed to date. Date who you want to date. Be intentional. And be honest. Because guess what? There's someone out there for everyone. Someone out there is willing to kneel on the ground and walk behind you. Or like we see Coming to America, bark like a dog. And if you say jump, they say how high. There are women out there who would do that in exchange for you paying for their lifestyle that they want. So find that person. But I feel like sometimes with what I've seen, a lot of men are very greedy. They know very good and well they don't want an independent woman, but they date her because she's the best out of the pack. If you have to put her, someone who works versus a woman who does not work, I'm going to want to be greedy and go with the girl that works, because that's a little extra money for me to wiggle with, right? So who wouldn't want that? But then be honest with yourself. But then you don't want the opinions or the opinionated nature that comes with her. No. Hey guys, we're back with part 2. And in part 1, we talked about the destruction of the Black household specifically, and how that affects the dating world in terms of the Black man versus Black woman debate that is trending a lot on social media. We also discussed both parties, their side. We did some historical background, and we also talked about how we can fix it and what both parties need to understand in order to reach a resolution. So today we're going to continue the discussion with part 2. Part 2 is going to discuss how our relation to one another affects cancel culture, how we cancel things on social media, and the dangers of that, how it leads to more separation amongst the genders within the community. I wanted to touch on this today because recently, specifically yesterday, the very famous podcast, The Pivot, faced a lot of backlash for some of the comments that Channing Crowder had made against Russell Wilson. So just to give you a little backstory, there was a specific episode of the podcast, and they were discussing certain things with relationships, and Sierra came up, and the comparison between Russell Wilson and Future, who are both individuals who have dated Sierra, Russell Wilson being her actual husband in the present time. And there was a comparison made amongst the two men. And one of the hosts of The Pivot, Channing Crowder, who I believe he's a Dolphins linebacker. He said that he considers Russell Wilson a lame or a square. And recently they went on the Breakfast Club to further that and I guess defend themselves. And he still reiterated that, yeah, he's a lame, he's a square. And that created a lot of negative comments, and people were unhappy with what he was saying. And I just wanted to touch on that because I think it clearly explains how we view things and how we relate to one another. So I'll just get into that. That was the backstory. And I get both sides. That's usually my niche, is I try to see both sides. So I'll start off with the reason for the backlash, so we can understand where a lot of people are coming from in society today. This generation specifically is very keen on the fact that previous generations did not have the ability, they didn't have the ability to understand how certain behaviors will affect us later on. And I say that specifically regards to mental health and self-esteem issues. So socially and culturally, we have been miseducated over the years about a lot of things. Specifically, Black men being conditioned not to express themselves emotionally, and not being able to express themselves freely. And as a result, there's a lot of pent-up anger that they have carried around. And that has led to, now as adults, there's a lot of mental health illnesses. So there is a correlation with that. It is not the only correlation, but it's a correlation nonetheless. And so we discussed this on part 1. Many people, especially in the Black community, have been discouraged to seek therapy, seek counseling. These were institutions that were seen as, they had this unhealthy stigma of, that's where the crazy people go. And no one's going to proclaim themselves to be crazy. So for a lot of individuals, specifically Black individuals, this is the population we're talking about in this series, it's like, hell no, we're not doing any therapy. Are you crazy? Like, it was almost taboo to even mention it and even consider it. And because of that, we have suffered greatly, because now as adults, we don't know how to deal with that. We don't know how to process our anger. A lot of people don't know how to deal with rejection. They don't know how to deal with not getting their way. They don't know how to deal with, and when I say they don't know how to deal with it, they know how to function. So they put on the front and they function, but I mean, they don't know how to actually deal with it completely to where it doesn't affect you. And let's move on from that. People also back then, another miseducation that we had back then was that we lived our lives based on stereotypes. There was a lot of judging of people, categorizing people, putting them in a box. You can't get out of the box. You have to stay within this box. You have to stay within the stereotype. And when it came to individuals being exceptions, instead of it being a positive thing, it was seen as something awkward. And it's like, you don't fit the stereotype. What's wrong with you? We had that back then. And so now this generation has been very vocal in accepting the awkwardness, being proud to be different, being proud to be to not fitting the stereotype. They're reclaiming their essence of who they are, and they're not making any excuses or any apologies for it. This is the time of now. We're as I said before in part one, we're healing ourselves, we're calling things out, we're saying what's wrong. We're about solutions, we're trying to fix it, we're trying to change things, and we have the tools needed now because we have social media and other viral techniques that we're using to get the message out there. Everyone now can have a platform, including myself, that you could just turn on your camera and you get a message out to the whole world. It's so much power in this generation and the ability to fix it. But there's still a lot more that we have to take in and understand. In this situation, the generation of now, most of the commenters, most of the people who are going against what was said in that podcast, it is because they recognize how important our voices and our perceptions play in how we relate to each other. Because think about why he called Russell Wilson lame or square. And the understanding is, okay, historically in our culture, in our environment, in our community, you would see a lot of the guys, they have this brotherhood, and you're taught many things, not to be soft, to be aggressive, be forceful, be in control of everything, have everything in control, have your stuff together, be strong, be tough, be loud to get your point across. That has taken over our communities, our environments, and it's hard to break from that tradition. And so if we see anything in opposition to that, so if we see a soft guy, right? He's soft, he's delicate, he is expressing himself, he acknowledges that he has feelings, he has no problem saying that out loud, he has no problem crying in front of people, and he loves his girl so much that he is not ashamed to say it, to proclaim it consistently, constantly, on a day-to-day basis. He will show her that he appreciates her, he loves her, he honors her, and cherishes her. He'll buy her gifts, do little sentimental things that mean a lot. This is in opposition to what a lot of Black men have been taught to do out of the means of just basic survival. Because, and I'm not saying that women are absolved of any mistakes or role that they play in this, because there's been a lot of times where if a man does that, he feels like he's either he's been played or betrayed before. Maybe he's done all of this for a woman before and she's cheated on him, been with other men. You feel foolish, you feel stupid, and you're criticized, made fun of by your community, by your close friends, because it's like, man, you see, that's what that soft stuff got you. Like, if you wasn't so soft, she would have played you. So it's kind of this idea that you have to be tough and strong in order to be respected. Because if you are soft in any way, or if you are sensitive in any way, you are disrespected. And this generation has realized that that is very dangerous for our community, and we're just trying to do things different. They're trying to do things different by changing that perspective. But I feel like there's a certain level of, I don't want to say patience, but there is a certain way to go about doing it. And so one of the ways that they're doing it now is they're doing this cancel culture, or a bunch of us get together, we go against it, we lash out, and we tear it down instantly. Let's just tear it down. As soon as anyone does something that we don't like, or we're going to jump all over it. And we just have to be careful and use our judgment to know when to rally together for a certain cause. Now, the fact that this individual, Channing Crowder, saw him as lame, a square, this is not the first time we're hearing that. We've heard that countless times in the I've heard it a lot with men, where they're dogged for being sensitive, and even women have dogged men and criticized them for doing that. So it becomes a part of your livelihood. That's how you were raised. That's how you grew up. That's, the groups that you hang out with. That's what you guys think of the person. And it could either be labeling them lame or a square as a means of making fun of them, or it could be like fighting words. So there's the two dynamics. I don't think he meant it to be completely negative. It's just what he thinks. It's just his opinion that I look at him as a square. Yeah, because that's not how a real man behaves according to him. He's entitled to his opinion, but it's just that this generation is making sure that they make it known that this is not healthy. We need to unlearn a lot of things that we were taught growing up, because it has really damaged our society with mental health. Guys don't feel like they can be expressive. They can't, show someone they love them. You gotta hold that stuff in. You gotta hold your feelings in, or else you're gonna be called a lame, or a softie, or a square. And we use these labels to instill fear into other people, or to change them in some kind of form or fashion to fit who we want. But does that mean that we come in attacking without explaining where we're coming from? And I think that's the disconnect. I'm sure if Channing Crowder's friends in his social circle who agree with this generation and agree with the backlash, if any one of those individuals had to sit down with him, or even if they discussed it on the pivot themselves and understood the opposing side to say, look, this is a dangerous thing that we're saying, because by continuing to judge people, label them, and categorize them, or to belittle their efforts in expressing themselves, or being different, or loving different, it's kind of setting us back, because we're not changing the dynamic. Isn't the goal for us to allow Black men to be more expressive, be more straight up with how they feel, be more loving towards each other, understanding and supportive of one another? We have to get out of that survival mentality, because it is killing our community, to where we're always in defense mode. And we don't have to be. It's okay for us to dial it back and be a little bit more sensitive, or be a little bit more understanding. There's nothing wrong with that, without having to call this person a certain name, or label them. Now, if that's the case, we also have to do our jobs as women and other men that when we do see someone expressing themselves or opening up to us or being vulnerable, we have to allow them that freedom and give them that space and welcome them. Because a lot of men will tell you, oh, I don't express myself, because when you do express yourself, women tend to clown you. I also heard that on another podcast. I don't remember the name, but they did have that discussion as well. And these are all related. They're all interrelated and connected. And if I am going to come to you and be vulnerable like you want me to, as a woman, you want me to be vulnerable with you, right? I'm your dude, and here I am. I'm expressing myself. I'm showing my softer side. And you end up clowning me. You end up laughing at me, or you can't even help me. You can't do anything. You don't even care. That is going to discourage me from sharing in the future. And so we have our duties as Black women to allow these men to unlearn what they've been taught, to be more vulnerable and be more open and be expressive in whatever fashion. And we have to, as a whole society, men and women, when we see someone who has an opposing idea, we don't have to cancel them. We don't have to attack them. We can just confront them and explain or get an idea of, well, why do you feel this way? And just challenge their opinion. Just say, hey, have you ever considered how this affects us? You know, and I think if you come from it from that side view, to where we're able to sit down and have a healing talk and understand we don't have to agree, but maybe there's another way that you could have said your opinion that didn't have to bring him down in any kind of way, because this is the guy that we kind of want. This is the standard that we're setting, to tell other men this is what we want as women, someone to do this for us. And again, we don't know their personal life. We don't know everything about their life. We don't know that Russell Wilson is a perfect guy. No one's perfect. I'm sure he has his issues and things that we are not privy to, because again, not everything is publicized. However, what we have seen and the efforts that he's made and things he's done, specifically for his wife in the marriage, this is what we desire as a group of women. And again, that is not shared by everyone, because there are some women who don't want a man that is vulnerable. They want more of the patriarchy, the historical typical idea of a manly man. So there needs to be men like that to fit that desire as well. So we're not going to change everybody's perspective, or their feelings, but we can welcome everyone's feelings. We can welcome the diversity in opinions, and without having to cancel people. And people are going to be afraid of expressing themselves, which is what happened in terms of, which is what has happened in society when you look at the issues of racism. People used to be outward with their racism, and now they dial it back because they've received so much criticism, so much punishments because of it. And so now you have no idea who's racist. They're closeted racists, closeted racists. So that is going to happen also with us, because if we continue to attack and cancel everything and everyone for every single opinion, People are not going to share their opinion publicly anymore. And they're going to just conceal how they really feel. And it's going to be more of the fake stuff. And we don't need any more of that. We need people to be able to be honest about their opinions. All we ask is that you do not look to harm or hurt another individual. And that's what I got. Because I think that this whole cancel culture thing and how we view men, black men versus how black men view black women, everybody has their opinion. And if you share your opinion, then people are there to attack you about for it. And it just breeds more chaos, in my opinion. If we can sit down and have real talks, understand what we all need and want from each other, and use that as a foundation, will be good. But we have to fix the foundation, and part of that is understanding how our current thought process can affect us as a whole on both sides. Then understand, okay, well, what is our goal as a whole, as a community? How can both sides contribute to that and still be truthful to who they are? That is what we need to know for black men and black women. How can we help you? How can you help us without changing who you are? You may not want to be a soft dude, but maybe don't criticize those who are. And understand why they're needed too. So that plays a big part in how we relate to each other. Cancel culture. This is the time now to fix these things, because if we don't, we will not be able to relate to one another. We will not be able to come to a mutual point of where we're respecting each other, so that way we can rebuild the black household. We can rebuild the black community. We can rebuild collaboration and collaborative efforts. But we cannot do that efficiently until we weed out the distractions, weed out the disagreements, and the systematic things that have been implemented to destroy us as a group. So we have to rebuild the collective. And we're not going to do that if we continue to go against anyone who opposes what we believe. Because it's not just us in the world. And just like we're allowed to believe what we feel, they're allowed to believe that too. But the goal is to make sure everyone is able to freely express it and then be open to having a conversation about it and a confrontation about it. Because confrontation does not have to be negative. I'm speaking from a positive standpoint. Confronting something. We're bringing something to light, and we're unlearning and relearning using both of our knowledge and personal experiences. So we're having this healing talk. Let me hear your side, you hear mine, and we come together and we figure it out. And we may not agree, but again, like I said prior to this, that we may not agree, but we can agree on what role you can play and what role I can play, and how we can show up for each other. There are a lot of times that when I used to hear a certain website trash men, I would always chime in and give my own account of dealing with the same type of guy. Oh yeah, girl. And I realized how that was hurting the collective, how that was hurting the community, because I'm continuing to speak ill of a certain population about the black man, and I realized how that was damaging, and I no longer wanted to play a part in that. So a lot of times I will see people say something about Black men or Black women, and even if I have the exact same experiences, I will use my better judgment to say, okay, is my opinion going to heal the conversation? Is it going to bring about results and resolutions, or is it going to continue to just diminish a Black man or a Black woman? And I had to put myself in check to say, well, this is not going to bring anything good to the conversation, so I am not going to share that opinion in that realm. What I will do, though, is try to figure out, understand, and share the side of the opposition. So I would always play devil's advocate, and it's not to be fake, but it's to put some realness on it. Like, this is their side of things. Can we acknowledge that this is true and acknowledge that this is also true? And we just need to figure it out. So this is how I'm speaking now, is for a reason. I learned to speak this way because I've realized it was more healing and it brought a lot of more resolutions. With managing teams in my career, learning different sides, different genders, Black men, Black women, other ethnicities, and having to be the peacekeeper is definitely something that we need more of, because I think that is what will bring everyone together. And so I use my conversations in the social media realm as a peacekeeper. I use that to bring us forward, because I do not want to say anything hurtful, because then I'm proving Black men right, that Black women only want to trash talk us, they only want to bash us. I have a responsibility, and I have a Black son. I do not want to be that person. So it's about accountability on my end, and I took that accountability and changed and reprogrammed. I unlearned to relearn and reconnect to my community and learn how to speak in a more supportive, loving, and understanding manner, but also be able to put forth the idea of holding accountability for what we have done, how we have contributed, how they have contributed, and now how we're going to fix this. And that's the reason why I have this podcast. So that is a conversation as an overview to show you how my thought process, how all this connects. Part 1, we talked about destruction of the Black household, Black man versus Black woman, and in the dating realm, how that trickled into how we treat each other and relate to each other. This also, in part 2, we discuss how now this affects cancel culture, because now how we relate to each other, it's kind of this basis for what we choose to cancel, how we attack, and what takes precedence in what we want to speak out against. And so we have to be careful that we're not projecting when we're canceling, and bring it all the way back. Let's bring back the love into this conversation. Let's bring back the love and the healing when we're speaking to each other and how we relate. Because if we can fix how we relate to each other, we will fix the Black man versus Black woman conversation and debate. We will be able to appreciate each other and advocate for one another without it being one-sided. It has to be both parties contributing to that, right? If I don't feel the Black man got my back, well, then I'm not going to have his. So we need to instill the love, use better judgment when we're doing cancel culture. Why not use cancel culture to cancel systemic oppression that is out there? That's what we need to be focusing on. So we have to fix that. And that will breed a great foundation for us to reinstill love into the Black household and the Black community, so that way we as a unit can fix ourselves and deal with ourselves in a more uplifting manner, have more collaborations. This is the stepping stone towards our power. Like, this is what we have to do as a community to be more, to thrive more in society. Again, I'm using the Black community as an example. The conversation could be applied in a generic form to other cultures and other races. However, I'm using the Black community again because this is a community that has had this issue for centuries, and we're still here. We need the most help right now, as far as fixing our infrastructure within our community. So we need to work on that. And so this is why I'm using that as an example. I'm also using it because I am a part of this community, and this is my podcast. So this is where my experiences come from. I'm not going to speak about something I cannot relate to at all. But yes, it can happen in any culture, but this is specifically targeted to the Black community. We need to rebuild, collaborate, and connect on a loving level.